to help develop all those characters, I think was the thing that led them on to their success at Notre Dame and Paul at Carolina. The original thinking, I think, on Holohan was he was about 210. And the play tackle at North Carolina at 210, Doc Blanchard's son was the right tight end at that particular team. And he was about 235. But I think that what Paul brought to his, first of all, he learned all of the line positions. He had an incredible work ethic. And he was all conference tackle there. The other two boys made All-American at Notre Dame. The situation as far as I think the other guard you mentioned you mentioned Emmett Gardner. Who else did you mention there?
Richie Zaro.
Richie Zaro. Well, Richie Zaro is a Polish youngster. He spoke with an accent at that particular time. Again, immigrant family. He was especially bright, a very bright youngster. We were going to a game. He's reading the New York Times on the bus going to a game. So many things I remember of him. I remember he kicked a 49-yard field goal at Boys High Field, and he asked me, "Which foot do you want me to kick it with?" I was saying, "My God Almighty!" I didn't know myself, so I said, "Well, whatever suits you to that side, that's fine." When he punted, the same thing. He used to run and punt, because he just felt comfortable from his soccer background in Poland. He won the 100-meter dash. He threw the javelin over 200 feet. He played tennis very, very well. I remember going up to Dartmouth, and Coach Blackman wanted to ask him if he'd like to go skiing. He said, "Yes, I'd like to go skiing." And he went down that mountain with Coach Blackman. It was incredible. I didn't realize he could ski as well as he did. Donato rolled down the mountain. I want you to know that. He ended up safe at the bottom. But he was an incredibly gifted athlete. And the way that thing worked out with Bobby Kennedy, one day he was traveling throughout Greenpoint, and he saw us practicing. And he was interested in sports at Kennedy. And I've heard him talk about sports. And he saw us practicing, he came over, and he said, "Coach, you don't mind if I watch?" I said, "No, we're honored." So he was watching us practice and so forth, and he noticed, of course, Richie and so forth, and then we introduced him as a star and so forth, and he followed that up at Harvard, and they developed a contact with him, and he was not only a gifted athlete, he was a very articulate young man, and as I say, carried multi-sports to Harvard, and he was an outstanding halfback at Harvard. He hurt his leg in the first year, stepped on a nail, he got damage in the bottom of his foot, so he stayed with the kicking. And later on, he kicked for 10 years in the New Orleans Saints as a professional, and the NFL. And I've just been blessed with working with so many outstanding young men who happen to come from immigrant or very modest circumstances.
Now, Coach, let's focus in a moment on North 6th and Bedford, the old prep, where you started coaching before we moved to present-day Queens. As a former football player, I know a lot about our history and about our tradition. And also I know at North 6th and Bedford, we had no weight room. The weight room was literally the boys' men's room. We used to do squats over the toilet bowls. All these great football teams, nationally recognized football teams, nationally recruited football players from the Ivy League to Notre Dame, Ohio State. But people don't know that you had to get on a train and go 30 minutes to Red Hook Field, 40 minutes, no showers, practice for 3 hours until it got dark. Then the young men, our student athletes, would have to go take their books, their dirty clothes, their football equipment back home, and then start the same way next day. Talk about, you've talked about the dedication, the work ethic, the immigrant story, but these were really under your tutelage with Mr. Nastro, Brother Owen Justinian, Brother Owen Kappa, the other great coaches you mentioned. This was incredible that this program was so successful, considering we had very, very little.
Well, you know, we were always in the boat of having very, very little. Both from the home that they came from to the school they went to. They had modest circumstances. I always remember the small weight room because that was the shower room. And they had 2 or 3 shower stalls. I remember them working on the milk crates and so forth because they didn't have some of the other types of equipment they have today. The other interesting point is in the fields that we practice on, there are no lines. Today, we have no lines on the field. In fact, tomorrow morning, our team, they asked our team to come to our field that we use a block from the school to help do some cleaning up with the field, work out with the goalposts and so forth. And so we have all of our teams tomorrow morning that's coming to work with the New York City Park Department. We're going to wear our jerseys so they identify us as the team that's coming down to help clean the field and so forth. Other schools probably have been asked as well, but we have been asked, and we're going down there tomorrow. So we've asked our young men to come down with their jerseys to help the park department fix up the field that we practice on. Unfortunately, we don't have goalposts. We've never had goalposts. So the kids, we just tell them, there's goalposts out there, and I want you to kick through those goalposts. And so they have to start imagining that there's goalposts. There's not a marking field. So I said, well, how do we solve that problem? So we got a number of our former graduates are firemen. And they've been very, very helpful in giving us hoses. We cut the fire hoses, the discarded fire hoses that they throw away. We cut them into about 12-yard pieces. And we put 2 fire hoses, so we have a line of scrimmage and a 10-yard marker so they know what direction they're going in. Again, it's doing without. So a very important fact that every night we roll up the fire hose and we put it back in a shed. When we didn't have the shed, we'd throw it in the bushes where the practice field. When we were going to Red Hook, they did have the goalpost there, but sometimes we practiced in the back. We didn't always get the front field. We got the practice back, and the kids did have to carry their stuff down on the bus, on the train rather, get down and walk maybe 20 minutes over to the field. Then practice, and then put, like you said, put everything back into their bag and go home with it. And we dressed in some of the old locker space down at that field. So there are certain themes that go through our situation, and I think, and one of them is that we were basically doing within a lot of the areas that we had to practice in. But we didn't think, that was the way it was. You just do. And I think the homes they came from, I think that the kind of immigrant mentality that was tenacious as far as competing, and I'm sure that a lot of their parents had to take whatever jobs they could get. They may not have had the education to qualify for certain jobs. Others they did. Others they made sacrifice to go to school and get the extra schooling that would help them qualify. That's how they became policemen and firemen. So we've had a very good tradition of policemen and firemen, particularly the firemen now. A good number of the former firemen have been very close to the prep, and their sons come to the prep. And we've been very, very fortunate in having that kind of dedicated work ethic at home carry over to the practice field in athletics.
Now, Coach, you've been coaching at St. Francis for almost 6 decades. I believe we're on your 56th or 57th year, including your 2 JV years. You've been a teacher, a coach, a mentor to over 1,500 young men. What are the similarities and differences in teaching and setting goals for young men? You know, the differences in the social nuances of our country, you know, of our Catholic faith. You know, how have you had to adjust over the years to, you know, in the 50s, we were probably mostly European immigrants. We did have some minority students. Now, perhaps half our football team